Hello and welcome to this video. It's Michael Pilkington speaking. A client of ours shared this particular image with me in the past couple of days, wanted some advice on how to post-process it, and I thought it would be a jolly good idea to share this with you and address some of the things that we did which may be of interest to you. So here we have a fairly typical Bluebell scene. What we have to note first of all is, what do we want to do with this photograph? How are we going to post-process it? And we have to think about some of the things we want to achieve. The first thing we want to achieve is to bring back the vibrancy and the saturation of the bluebells, and equally the leaves of the beech trees. So beech tree leaves at this time of the year are very, very bright, very vivid, yellowy green, very, very bright. And equally the bluebells are a lot more vibrant and saturated than we see in this raw file. Second thing we want to do is to create a sense of depth and recession within the image. We are in a woodland. It seems like, from the raw file it's evenly lit. So we want to try and create some sense of depth and dynamism to the image. Now, if we look at the histogram, we can see that the image has been shot a little bit to the left because of trying to keep the specular highlights in, and we can see that they've actually been blown over here. This is not an issue. This is a very small part of the image, and we've got a couple of fixes that we can do to get rid of that. So let's not worry about that. You might be inclined to increase the exposure because of the histogram. But if we did that, you will see immediately that the image becomes flatter, and more importantly, we start to lose saturation. So counterintuitively, what I want to do is to bring down the exposure. And as we bring down the exposure, we increase saturation. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is to increase the highlights. Okay, and let's push those all the way to the right. And you can already start to see separation in this file. If we go from where we were before, we can see quite a lot of separation there. Okay, let's go up to HSL. Let's go to luminance. Let's increase the luminance of these bluebells. Let's bring those out. Okay, so bring out the blues and bring out the purples. Now, as we increase luminance, we decrease saturation. So on the saturation sliders, I'm going to be pushing these to the right as well. Go back to luminance. Let's increase these a little bit more, getting some real shine to these lovely bluebells down here. That's pretty good. I'm quite happy with that. And we might even just give a little lift to the leaves of the beech trees. Okay, so it's looking very, very nice now. Let's go back to our main palette. Okay, so let's bring down exposure again, ever so slightly. Okay, highlights are where they should be. Whites, we don't want to bring these up too much, but we can bring them up a little bit. I'm not worried about these highlights up here being blown. And I think we're in a good position now to take this into Photoshop. So let's do that. Okay, here we are. Right, so I want to continue to work on the light in the woodland floor here. So I'm going to get my lasso tool, and I'm going to select right across here and put a curve on there. So we're going to put a curve, and we're just going to lift the light in there, but peg back the shadows so we get some real separation. Now those colors are going a bit crazy, so that's a function of the curve. So what we have to do is change the blending mode to luminosity, so that will be Option Shift Y. Okay, and just lift that back up a little bit there. That's good. Switch that off and on, and you can see nice separation. This area here, I think this branch could be a little bit brighter as well, so put a curve on that. So lift the light up there, bring back the shadows back to where they were. Option Shift Y, change the luminosity. Sorry, this one here. So there we go. Let's bring that down just a tad. It might be a bit too bright. Okay, so that's looking quite good. I think we'll crop. We've got this tree coming in on the side here, so we'll just take that across there, and we'll probably bring down the tops just a little bit to retain the aspect ratio that we had before. Okay, and what I might want to do now is to look at this specular highlight. Okay, so I'm going to create a stamp layer, which is Command Shift Option E, and I'm going to get the clone tool. Now, if you've looked at the video, how to remove halos, I'm going to use exactly the same technique. So what I'm doing is getting the clone tool, changing the blending mode to darken. Okay, let's just zoom in here a bit. I'm going to increase my brush size, and I'm going to select from over here and basically clone in there. What happened? What happened was the white area, like here and here, get copied over because they're lighter than the source. So in dark mode, darken blend mode, anything that's darker, like the tree trunks, are not impacted by the clone tool. Those things that are lighter than the source are impacted. So that would be the highlights that we saw. And there you can see we've got a very, very clever method of removing specular highlights or areas of highlight in our image that we're not happy with, without impacting the image too much. Makes it very, very simple. It's quite a nice little technique there. Let's go back to full size. That's good. So we've got our layer there. So finally, I want to go back into Camera Raw. Okay. I want to bring this over here. And what I want to do is to select the bottom part of this picture. So I'm going to go for a targeted adjustment brush. Make sure everything is reset back to 0. Select my mask. And I'm just going to brush in the bottom part of the picture here. Okay. And basically what I want to do is add clarity. So just pull out clarity and see how those bluebells really come out. Just click off the overlay there. I might even bring out the highlights just a bit more to exaggerate that. Now you can see up here we've got some red warning signs, and even down here we've got some red warning signs. I'm not going to worry about that just yet. I'm going to bring back the shadows, so really exaggerating what we have in the floor there. It's very nice, very contrasty, lots of depth, light and dark. I'm going to new adjustment brush, put my mask back on, reset everything back to 0, and I might just bring in a few little changes here. So I think I'm going to just bring back the highlights a touch, okay, but equally I'm going to increase clarity just in those areas there. Okay, look at before and after. A bit more controlled. Okay, now how to get rid of these individual blown highlights? Well, what we're going to do, we'll go back to the main tab and we'll go to the tone curve, and on the tone curve we simply grab the end here and change the output from 255, which is pure white, to something like 250, and they've all disappeared. Click OK. And pop, there we have our image from before. And there we have it. Our Bluebell wood has been nicely post-processed. We've got depth, we've got recession, We've got light and dark, that dappled light that you experience in the woods, and the vibrancy of the beech trees and the bluebells. So I think mission accomplished. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.